Narration: News Miami-Dade. School cameras in Miami-Dade. $47 million to the county, from a contract copied from 6 zones to 206. On screen. Article headline. NMD logo. Date. Image. Higgins/escuela.png with title overlay. Narration: The document the administration used to ask commissioners to approve speed cameras in school zones described the program, in writing, as revenue positive. A year and a half later, the county's adopted budget records nearly $47 million as county revenue from those fines, and it places 2/3 of the fund under 2 broadly worded line items. On January 17, 2024, the Miami-Dade Board of County Commissioners approved the contract to install automated speed cameras in the 206 school zones already authorized by ordinance, without competitive bidding. By accessing a contract the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, had awarded in 2019, and which was implemented there in 6 school zones. By ordinance, the program operates only in the unincorporated area of the county. On screen. 3 figures. 206 zones. 6 zones in Alpharetta. $46,987,000. Narration: This did not begin in January 2024. It began on October 3, 2023, when the board adopted Resolution R901-23, sponsored by then Vice Chairman Anthony Rodriguez. That resolution did not order a market study or a bid. It named the company RedSpeed Georgia, and it ordered something more. Section 2 says that within 30 days the mayor shall prepare an agenda item awarding a contract to RedSpeed. Section 3 says that if she cannot close it, she must file a report explaining why no contract was awarded. In other words, what had to be justified was the failure, not the award. It passed 10 votes to 2. Voting against were Commissioners Eileen Higgins and Raquel Regalado, with Commissioner Renee Garcia absent. On November 7, 2023, the board approved Ordinance 23-99, which identifies the 206 school zones. Its fiscal impact statement said that because of the number of variables the impact could not be calculated, but that the program was anticipated to be revenue-generating. State law requires more than passing the ordinance. It requires the board to consider, at the public hearing, traffic data or other evidence supporting each proposed system, and to determine that each school zone where one is placed presents a heightened risk. The ordinance makes that determination in a single formula covering all 206 zones at once. The evidence in the published record is one global figure. About 2,500 citations in all of 2022. No zone-by-zone data was located. On January 17, 2024, the award came before the board. The mayor's memorandum described the system as exclusively violator-funded, at no cost to the county, and, in its own words, revenue positive. With a projection of $144 million for the county and $71 million for the vendor over 6 years. It is worth understanding what the $215 million in the title of the resolution is. It is not what the county pays. It is the 2 projections added together. The original solicitation was from 2019. Alpharetta issued it on June 6 and closed it on June 20, 14 days. It asked for a system for 9 school zones. It received 3 proposals from RedSpeed, Vera Mobility, and Census America. And everything the Miami-Dade record says about why RedSpeed won fits in one sentence. That proposals were evaluated against the scoring criteria in the solicitation. Not the criteria, not the scores, not the committee, not the award memorandum. The vendor profile the memorandum itself includes says RedSpeed Georgia has its principal place of business in Lombard, Illinois. In the local address field, none. Employees residing in Miami-Dade. 4% of its workforce. And it marks the small business preference and the local preference as not applicable. Those are features of competitive bidding, and here there was no competition. On screen, cover pages of files 232491 and 240293.
All right. The next item.
Item 8P2.
Vice Chair, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and if the attorney can just read a motion that I have on the record. the amendment.
Vice Chairman Rodriguez moves to amend item 8P2 to change the lead county department administering the contract with Red Speed Georgia LLC for the installation and operation of an automated speed detection and enforcement system at school zones from the Miami-Dade Police Department to the Department of Transportation and Public Works. DTPW will work in coordination with other county departments, including MDPD and ITT, in administering the contract, and will take on the responsibilities of the lead county user department in place of MDPD. All references to MDPD in the mayor's memorandum as the lead department will be replaced with DTPW. And the resolution, section 1, is amended to read as follows. This board approves the access of contract number 20-103 speed detection camera system for school zones with Red Speed Georgia LLC for the Department of Transportation and Public Works, and a total amount estimated to be $215 million for the 6-year term. Conforming changes will be made to the title of the resolution to identify DTPW as the lead user department.
Thank you. And it is pooled by district. Commissioner from the 13th district, the 7th district, and the 5th district. Do you anybody wish to speak on it, or is it just for voting purposes?
Madam Mayor, you feel comfortable with this piggybacking of contract?
I understand that behind the question, if I may, through the chair, is that we're dealing with a company that might not have the same experience for a large venue as ours. I think the question really is the technology, and if maybe we could hear from procurement director about that.
So, Senator, you're absolutely right. We generally look at the comparability of the contract, but if it's any consolation, when we did the research, there are 3 main companies in this space, and all three companies offer different models for structuring the contract. I think the model that Red Speed has adopted in terms of no cost to the agency, they're bearing the entire upfront cost and sharing, and if the tickets are generated, both parties share the portion of that ticket. I think that's the most common model that we're seeing and most prevalent, because we don't have to invest in any technology, while the other companies also charge a lot for technologies. So I think from that point of view, we do feel comfortable.
Okay. Listen, again, I'll leave it up to, I'll pass it on to Commissioner Regalado. I mean, if it's up to the chair or whatever, the chair decides.
Commissioner Regalado, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I voted against this in committee and also in first reading. There's a lot of reasons that I think we should hit the pause on this. I think Commissioner Garcia has brought up some good points. I also, caution you all. I also dealt with red light cameras at the city of Miami for a very, very, very long time. And once you go down this road, it's very, very hard to undo it. That being said, this impacts the school district. The school district should be participating in this, and they're not. The funds should go to the school district at some point, whether it's in the form of adding more personnel around the schools. There are many schools in Miami-Dade County that do not have crossing guards because they do not have funding. That funding is done by the county if it's unincorporated, or if it's done by the city. There are also a lot of schools that do not have the funding to fix their queue, which is the traffic at the drop-off and pickup site. And finally, after Parkland, we needed at the school district side to change school zones, because after Parkland, for those of you who were in Tallahassee, you remember, we had a dramatic change that you can only go in and out of a school through one entrance, but the school zones stayed the same. So I think there needs to be a broader conversation about how school zones work, how these tickets are going to work, where kids are coming in and out, what's the difference between a high school and a middle school and an elementary school, schools that have invested in putting their queue inside the school, schools that have the queue outside and it impacts traffic. So it's a very complex situation, and what I will warn you about this is that you're going to have a lot of angry people, and we still have not seen the evidence that this is really necessary. I think this is more a solution looking for a problem. If you want to have this conversation, bring in the school district, bring in Safe Streets, bring in the University of Miami. They do this work. They do Bike Safe. They do Walk Safe. There's a lot of people that are doing this work. The TPO does this work under a committee where we talk about pedestrian and cyclist safety, and we focus on schools. I've been doing this work as a school board member and then also as a county commissioner. We're working on bike lanes around certain schools. So I'm not saying that absolutely it would not be needed in some places, but I think this blanket decision to do it in this manner is going to be challenging for everyone involved, and it's going to be very difficult for us to roll back.
Narration. The timeline fits in a table, and every row comes from an official document or from the recording of the session. May 31st, 2023. The governor signs the state law authorizing these systems. October 3rd. The board names red speed by resolution. November 7th. The ordinance sets the 206 zones. January 8th, 2024. The item clears committee with a favorable recommendation of 3 votes to 1. January 17th. The contract is awarded 10 votes to 3. November 4th. Installation begins. September 4th, 2025. At the budget hearing, it is explained that the money is split by district. January 21st, 2026. The first annual report arrives. June 2nd, 2026. The board ratifies $10.5 million from a fiscal year already closed. On screen, the table animated row by row, date large, proving document below. Narration. The law sets how each $100 fine is divided. 60 stays with the county. 20 goes to the state general fund. 12 to the school district. 5 to the crossing guard program. And 3 to a state law enforcement training fund. Which means, of every $100 a driver pays for speeding past a school, 12 reach the school system, and 65 stay with the jurisdiction that installed the camera. What happens to that share appears, by name and number, in the adopted budget. The cameras have their own fund, G3109. The book records $46,987,000 in fine revenue and $6.5 million in carryover. And it distributes the resulting $53,487,000 across 5 lines. $15,506,000 paid to the company. $2,037,000 for violation review. $705,000 for department administration. $14.5 million transferred to the sheriff's office. And $20,739,000 under the heading of other legally eligible project costs. These are budgeted figures, not verified collections. But they support 3 calculations the book itself sustains. First, the $15.5 million for the vendor matches 33% of the $47 million recorded, and 33% is the share the company takes from the $60 the county keeps. There is a second check, and it is what the fund does not have. If the revenue were gross, the expense side would have to carry the remittances to the state and the school district, more than $16 million. It has 5 lines, and none is a remittance. So those nearly $47 million are the county share, not total collections. Second, identifiable operating cost rises to $18,248,000, about 34% of the fund. Third, the 2 broadest lines add up to $35,239,000, 2/3 of the total. And there is an earlier figure that had not been counted. Fiscal year 2024-25, the first with cameras switched on, closed with money that was not budgeted, $10.5 million, under a heading called literally red speed camera revenue. $4 million to program expenses and $6.5 million to reserve. And those $6.5 million are exactly the carryover the following year's budget records for the same fund. That money does not go into a common pot. At the budget hearing of September 4th, 2025, Commissioner Eileen Higgins explained it in public session. The revenue is divided 13 ways, 1 per district. Appendix G of the same book confirms it under another name, Red Speed Projects by Commission District. What remains unpublished is how much goes to each one. On screen, Capture of page 166 of the budget, with the G3109 fund table.
Very much. And then I know this is a very small amount. We have a new source of revenue in the county from our school zone cameras. I voted against that item, but that revenue source is divided into 13 piles. It wasn't going back into the general fund. By the way, it's many, many, many millions of dollars. I don't represent much of UMSA, so mine's a very small amount. But Madam Mayor, I would like to amend the county budget to reallocate the school zone speed detection system distribution for District 5 to the countywide general fund to fund community-based organizations for eligible public safety initiatives. And I think there's any relevant portions of items C, E, and H. Did I get that right? Okay, I'm getting a thumbs up from the attorneys, are amended accordingly. And so it's not a huge contribution, but it'll put a little bit back into the CBO pot. Thank you. And I would appreciate a second on my amendment when we get there. Second. Thank you.
Money to restore the CBO funding that we see, especially for our legacy programs. And I want to mention these in particular as the farm share, the 762 Caba to 319 Lotus House for the 50 beds. These are all countywide services, Voices for Children, and ADE. Those legacy projects, amongst the other ones, I think are importantly, we can find the funding with that, with what Commissioner Higgins, you mentioned about the school zone automated speed detection program, which allocates about $20 million to the county commission. I think that money could better be used to make sure we take care of our CBOs. And Mr. Chairman, I think I could make those and the FIFA money, I agree with that as well. The FIFA money is another avenue that we can use, and maybe the 10 million has been expended already, but you may have another 10 million that was there, and I do agree.
Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's important that we all get clear on the item and the numbers and how things are being allocated, because the $215 million, just to be clear, if Namada is still here, is not $215 million that the county is responsible for paying, correct?
Through the chair, you're right. We're not paying for any technology or system. The company is going to bear the cost for the entire system. What we're representing in the item is the projected revenue that could be generated based on the number of tickets.
And in the item, it says here, the county would not necessarily retain 144 million, as House Bill 657 indicates that the county will retain $60 to administer speed detection systems in school zones and other public safety initiatives, and will remit $40 to entities as follows: $20 to the Department of Revenue for deposit into the General Revenue Fund, $12 to the school district for school safety and security initiatives, student transportation or safety of student walking conditions, $5 to the county or municipality for the school guard recruitment and retention program. So of the funds generated from these tickets that are being cited in order to protect our children in school zones where the law is that you're supposed to be driving 15 miles an hour, these funds are going to get distributed as outlined in the item, some of which are going to the school board, correct?
Yes, these were itemized in the House bill.
Okay, and I'm assuming this was publicly noticed. I know that it was because it came before us previously. We've certainly had plenty of opportunity for the public to speak and to be heard. Has the school board articulated either in writing or before this body any objection or any interest in having anything different than what's before us today?
I would not know that. I did not. In my team, we didn't hear anything. I don't know if police heard any objection from that.
Yeah, neither have I. Thank you so much. Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Narration. On January 21st, 2026, the board received the program's first annual report required by state law. From December 1st, 2024 to July 31st, 2025, 252,873 notices of violation were issued. 2,129 were contested. 1,598 were upheld, and 531 dismissed. 170,404 were paid, and 75,468 were converted into uniform traffic citations, 30 out of every 100. It is worth setting that first figure beside the one the county used to justify the program. In all of 2022, with officers, police issued about 2,500 school zone speeding citations. In 8 months, with cameras running in 27 of the 206 zones, 252,873 notices were issued, 100 times more, with a tenth of the planned deployment. The comparison allows 2 readings, and both are legitimate. That there was mass violation nobody was enforcing, or that the apparatus detects at a scale officer enforcement never had. And that last figure, the conversions, closes the circle with the January 2024 session. It is exactly the step the county attorney described when she corrected the board: conversion into a traffic citation, which is the route by which, if it also goes unanswered, it can end up costing a driver's license. On screen, the 7 figures of the report, one by one, in large type.
So this report is an annual requirement per state statute. There are certain components that do need to be read into the record. So if you'll give me a moment, I will read that into the record. So these are program results for the Miami-Dade County Red Speed Program from December 1st, 2025 to July 31st, 2025. Notice of violations issued were 252,873. Notice of violations contested, 2,129. Notices of violations upheld at administrative hearing, 1,598. Notices of violation dismissed at administrative hearing, 531. Notices of violation paid, 1,070, 404. And notices of violation issued as uniform traffic citations, 75,468. Distribution of funds for the 2024-25 fiscal year. The Florida Department of Revenue General Revenue Fund received $3,408,080. Florida Department of Revenue Department of Law Enforcement Criminal Justice Standards and Training Trust Fund received $511,212. The County School District received $2,044,848. The School Crossing Guard Recruitment and Retention Program received $852,020. Miami-Dade County, this is for Program Administration and Public Safety Initiatives, received $6,645,756. And Red Speed received $3,578,484 for a total of $17,040,400, excuse me. Additional fees, credit card chargebacks, return checks, and refunds was a negative $32,800, and hearing officer fees were $74,450.
Thank you, Director. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, can we have the information regarding the budget? She agreed to put it in the report moving forward.
Yeah, show the record that the director has agreed to add that to the report or a budget or some form on paper that we can look at that. Yep.
Thank you.
I'd agree.
Narration. The report was not accepted in silence. Commissioner Raquel Regalado pulled it from the list to discuss it, and what she said points precisely at what this work had to reconstruct by hand, that the report accounts for what was collected but does not cross it against the budget. She explained she had to go to the budget book herself to reconcile the figures, and asked that from now on the report include projections and how they fit the budget. The Director of Transportation and Public Works agreed, and the chairman ordered it entered into the record. Then Commissioner Hardemon spoke, and something appeared there that is in no document of the program. He said that during the budget cycle the board had given direction on how to divide that money, and that each affected district was to receive a share. And he said he was surprised to learn that the total goes first to the sheriff's office, before districts can draw anything. His substantive objection was that it is one thing for a neighborhood to be showered with fines, and another for that neighborhood to be able to reinvest what it pays. To answer, The director of the Office of Management and Budget, Ray Baker, came to the podium and described the mechanism with a clarity the record does not have. First comes what corresponds to the sheriff. Once that is covered, the next share is what remains available for the 13 districts. And he acknowledged aloud the question that leaves open, whether there will be enough money for that share. Commissioner Oliver Gilbert summed it up in one sentence, that they do not get paid until everyone else has been paid. Closing, Regalado proposed looking at this every 3 or 4 months instead of once a year, precisely because part of that money funds the sheriff. All of the above are positions stated in public session, not proven facts about how the program works. They are reported as what they are.
While she comes down really quick.
Yep.
I just had a question about the report. Since we added this on the agenda, I know that we're following the reporting per state statute, but since we use this money in part to fund the sheriff, can we put in some information about the budget and if we're on track? Because I think that would be helpful for us as we go into the mid-year. So this is actually projection funding. So we have the numbers of how much is being collected, but we're not matching that up to the budget. So I had to go to the budget book and match it up. And the budget book obviously does the annual, not the quarterly. So moving forward, could we just put in a line regarding the projections and how this ties into the budget? I think that would help us all just ensure as we go into the midterm that we're still within the range that we projected for this funding.
That works?
We'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
And do you want to go ahead and read your statement now?
I do. Thank you. I appreciate that. So,
All right. With that, Commissioner Hardemon.
Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Chair. During our budgeting cycle, we gave some direction as to how the money was to be allocated in the budget. And the question I have for the board as far as discussion-wise is, did any of you anticipate that we would not have, I'm trying to figure out a better way to say this. So, did anyone anticipate, one, that we wouldn't have the revenue from the program to support all of the aims that we had for distribution? So, for instance, with the revenue sharing, there was supposed to be a share of it that goes to each of the districts that were affected, so they can have the ability to assist with issues of crime reduction in whichever way we go about doing it. I know we gave a portion of those dollars to the sheriff's office, but it threw me for a loop, and I just was wondering if it threw any of you all for a loop, that we weren't going to have the revenue to cover, and then two, 100% of the dollars that were coming into Miami-Dade County were being first given to the sheriff's office before we were able to do anything within any of our districts for those dollars.
I'm not. Commissioner Regalado, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying, that the item doesn't speak to the decisions that we made in the budget, right? So the report should speak to the line item and the projections. I think when we decided to fund the sheriff, the conversation was that we would still retain our portion should that portion exist. So I think from a budgetary perspective, the idea was that we would pay what was due to the sheriff, and then if something was left over, because they're projections, right? Which is why I think we should have quarterly information on these projections. But that's going to come up in the mid-year. So that's why I'm saying at the mid-year we'll be able to shift that. So, for example, if there is a change in allocation in the mid-year for the sheriff, which we think that there will be, could that then shift this funding so that the districts could receive some of that money now instead of some of that money at the end of the year? Because if we get it at the end of the year, then we're not really getting it in this budget. We're getting it in the next budget, and it might be swept. That's my concern.
Is that Commissioner Hardemon?
Just a quick response to that, and then the Vice Chairman is asking to be recognized. Thank you for saying that, because what I haven't really seen is what's the plan for us to meet the budgetary projections that were presented to us earlier, right? Because if we don't meet those budgetary projections, then we don't have the revenue that we expected to have, right? And so, when you think about a program like this, part of the benefit to it, because I know this costs our taxpayers money, especially in areas where they're not. Well, people are very confused about how the red camera speed program works. What are the true times? Are you just doing it during the school hour time? Is it? It's different from what it used to be. Put it that way. And so people are being tagged with this bill. And then for those of our districts who are most affected, they don't have the ability to, even for us to be for it to be reinvested into their neighborhoods. And so it's one thing to be tagged. It's another thing for then you to be able to reinvest it in the neighborhood that is getting the most, that are paying the most in the fees. And so I thought that that was sort of the spirit of everything. And unfortunately, because we're not getting a portion of the revenue just yet, it's a bit frustrating, not only for the district, but certainly for the constituencies.
Yeah, and it is my understanding, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it is my understanding that we do have those funds coming into our district areas, if you would say, but they do have to be used. And I think some of us have already allocated those funds to certain things or organizations or things of that nature. But I mean, I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Regalado, of matching that up, which is somewhat what you're saying too, Commissioner, is to the budget to kind of see what's left over for us to allocate, right? Is that what you're kind of, because I know we have received the funds. I'm not sure
Well, I think that's a question because, yes, we made an allocation, but I don't know if people receive funds in order to be able to be given to these organizations.
Through the chair, we'd be happy to have our Office of Management and Budget clarify the questions that are being raised.
Hi, good morning. Ray Baker, Office of Management and Budget Director. Good to see you all today. So that's correct. There are the money that's first coming in or projected to come in to the sheriff. Once we receive all the funds that match up to the budget for that, the next tranche would be what would be available for the districts as it was allocated across the 13 districts in the second budget memo. And that is divided up by the QNIP allocations for your district. So you all are correct bringing up these questions. Are we going to have enough money ready for that bucket, the bucket that's spread across your districts, to begin allocating and spending? And I believe the correct solution is that we give a good regular update on what we've actually received in revenues from this funding source so that we know that it is okay to start spending it, so to speak.
my question is, and this is sort of, you're right, it is from the last budget, but now my question is, because you had a pretty good answer. Like, you know what you're talking about, Director. So, Commissioner Hardemon, have you expressed this to them prior? Have you asked this question to them prior? Or you have? I thought so, because he had the answer.
Well, I haven't spoken to him.
Correct, but like the administration had the answer. I'm wondering why that wasn't part of the report, if there was a sense that some commissioners could have had questions on that. And that could be to the mayor, to the director, to the chief.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I think the motion that was made, which is to make sure that that report going forward includes the actual budget numbers as opposed, in addition to the other numbers that need to be read into the record, included as part of it, should be what we're doing going forward.
Okay, thank you for that. Vice Chair and then Commissioner Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and he pretty much answered the question, because I had the same questions that Commissioner Hardemon had, and I believe it was Commissioner Regalado that helped clear it up. So I'm fine with your answer, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to put it plainly, we don't get paid until everybody else gets paid. So let's just, that's it, all right? We get paid after everybody else gets paid. The reason why we do that is because we use that money to shore up holes in other places. That was allowable by the statute. So we get paid after everybody else. I understand that. But I just want to be clear, because something was said that it might get swept later if it comes in late. I don't subscribe to the idea that the administration can automatically, without our authority, sweep money out of any of our accounts. So I just want us to be clear about that before we go forward, because it was said, and you might have said it, and they might not have thought about it, and then they're like, "Oh, we can just sweep it." No, you can't. No, you can't. You can't sweep it. Whenever the money comes in, the budget ordinance is a duly adopted, legally binding thing. You're controlled by it. It's our money. No, you cannot sweep it. We get to allocate that money in our districts for public safety, road improvements, however we see fit for our districts.
Correct. You're correct, Commissioner Gilbert. And that's why we, as a body, decided to sweep our own fund and give towards the sheriff in the last budget. All right. With that, all in favor of the report signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Show the report passed. Madam Attorney, can we take the mayoral appointment of Director Baker, item 2B1?
Narration. The annual report states that the company receives 33% of the $60 the county keeps when there are up to 100 systems installed, and states that there were 70. 33% of 60 is $19.80. On 170,404 paid citations, that would come to $3,373,999. The report reports $3,578,484, 204,485 more. That amount works out to exactly $21 per paid citation, which is 35% of the 60, not the 33 the document itself describes. That calculation is made by News Miami-Dade from the 3 figures in the report itself. And the exactness of the result, $21 on the nose, points more to a flat fee per citation than to a percentage. It is also worth saying what the figure does not disprove. $21 is still less than the $24.75 the company charges in Alpharetta. The promise to charge the same or less per citation holds. What does not fit is the percentage. Nothing here supports a claim of wrongdoing. It may be a contractual term different from the one the report summarizes, or a drafting error. The signed contract with its price schedule would settle it. And one detail in the record points that way. Alpharetta's original solicitation expressly allowed the vendor to be paid one of 2 ways, a revenue split or a fixed amount per paid citation. That contract is not published. The resolution itself says the contract documents are on file and available upon request at the Strategic Procurement Department. On file and available upon request is not the same as published. On screen. The math on screen, step by step. 33% of 60 is equal to 19.80. 19.80 times 170,404 is equal to 3,373,999. Report, 3,578,484. Difference, 204,485. Per citation, 21.00. Narration. The contrast comes down to 3 documents and 1 sentence. The ordinance's fiscal impact statement said the program was anticipated to be revenue generating. The mayor's memorandum called it revenue positive and projected $144 million for the county. The adopted budget records nearly $47 million in fine revenue in a single fiscal year. And in the session where it was approved, the sponsor of both the ordinance and the resolution said, in his own words, that the intent is not to generate revenue, that the idea is to generate $0, because 0 would mean every driver had slowed down. It is worth reading the projection with a calendar in hand. Adding the 2 projections, $215 million over 6 years, is about $35,800,000 a year, against the $46,987,000 recorded. And netting out the vendor on both sides, $24 million projected against $31,481,000. Either way, about a third more than forecast. What gives that third its weight is the scale at which it happens. 70 systems in 27 school zones, barely more than 1 in 10 of the 206 the projection was built on. 2 caveats so the comparison is fair. What the budget records is projected revenue, not closed collections. And the report citations cover 8 months, not a full fiscal year. Even so, the gap between what was projected and what was budgeted is explained by no document in the record. Narration. The county's official page states that the photo enforcement system is funded entirely by paid fines and that a violation occurs when a driver exceeds the limit by more than 10 miles per hour. That sentence is true, but it falls short because it does not say which of the 2 limits or when. The law does not provide one set of circumstances for a citation. It provides 4, and they do not work the same way. 3 of them measure against the reduced school zone limit, and operate only in short windows. The 30 minutes before and after the start of the breakfast program, the same 30 around the start of classes, and another 30 around dismissal. The fourth is different in every respect. It invokes a different section, the one on unlawful speed generally. It measures against the ordinary posted limit of the road, not the school limit. And it does not operate in a half-hour window, but, in the statute's own words, during the entirety of a regularly scheduled school session. Which means, at mid-morning, when the reduced limit is not in force, the camera is still running. What it measures then is whether the driver exceeds the ordinary limit of that road by more than 10 miles per hour. And that connects to what the law requires be posted. The permanent sign must carry the school zone limit and the hours it applies, or a flashing beacon in place of the hours. It does not require posting the ordinary limit of the road inside the zone. And the set of circumstances that runs all day is measured against the posted limit. The first annual report does not allow anyone to know how much each set of circumstances accounts for. It gives the notices issued and the other figures the law requires, but it does not break them down by the section each citation invokes. That breakdown necessarily exists because every citation is issued under one or the other. On screen, the 4 sets of circumstances on 4 cards. The first 3 with a half-hour clock. The fourth with the full school day. Narration. Questions remain, and they are worth saying out loud. How many zones have been added since July 2025, and when will the 206 be complete? Whether the company is paid a percentage or a fixed amount per citation, and under which clause. What the school district has done with its share. What exactly the $20,739,000 in other legally eligible costs contains, district by district. And the one that matters most, whether the program reduced speed. The annual report contains the 7 required figures, but none of them measures whether people slow down. No speed reduction evaluation was located, neither in the report nor in the records reviewed. There is another that arises from the signage itself. The law requires the permanent sign to carry the reduced limit and the hours it applies, or a beacon. With officers that mattered little. With a system that cites by time window, it matters. Do all 206 zones carry the hours written out, or the beacon? The same law has also required, since 2008, a doubled fine sign inside every newly created school zone or one whose signage has been replaced. And that question has a responsible party named in the law itself. School zones maintained by the county must be periodically inspected by the sheriff's office or another qualified officer to determine whether they are being properly maintained. And maintenance expressly includes the signs. That obligation comes from general law and did not arise with this program. What the records can answer is whether those inspections exist, how often, and what they found. Narration. The county copied a contract designed for 6 school zones and stretched it to 206. And today its budget counts on nearly $47 million that come out of the pockets of people driving too fast past a school. The question nobody has answered is not how much is collected. It is whether anyone slows down. At News Miami-Dade, we read the entire record and we follow your public money dollar by dollar. The full article, with the documents and the 9 excerpts from the sessions, is at newsmiamidade.com on screen. Article address, logo, hashtags,